inspired by the first Broadway play I ever saw, which was a matinee that I could afford. And it was Hair. And in the middle of it, all the old ladies who come to matinees all leaned way forward in their seats because, of course, there was that nude scene, right? And so one of the things that I try to do in this book is to make poetry theater itself. Kind of hard to explain until you see the words on the page. But one thing I use is italics for dialogue, of course, and then brackets, which are supposed to be stage directions. I use it for another voice most of the time. So there's at least 3 voices happening. I kind of like that conversation. It's play-like. So the first one, I think I've told you everything. Yes. Stage manager, lights up. And it starts with, of course, brackets. Giant hand moves the parade ground, stage left. The set says, oh my God, the alien blows through the one window not yet painted over. And then brackets, ... Okay, dancers, tambourine, brackets, in shivers in front of the guns. I guess that was the Edith Kent State. What about this is false? The scale, the alien plastered to the wall in a green you can't see, like a green screen. The trust you place, brackets, like an acorn in the seat. Now the marching soldiers say, drape the pretty flowers on the muzzle. Then there's brackets. I know you're really you're really looking, what is she saying? Brackets, whereupon the put upon, for example, the ladies, leap like petals falling off, each a drop of solder for the soldiers, their feet led, in brackets. Who me? To the elderly mirror. The play, question mark, in brackets, Hair. The comedian Jack Benny, who makes his joke, did you happen to notice if any of them were Jewish? The alien drops its eyes to the credits on paper. The dramaturg says, not only did many of the lyrics in the play not rhyme, but many of the songs didn't really have endings, just a slowing down and stopping to the audience, so the audience didn't know when to applaud. Me, becketed. This one is in couplets. You'll be happy to know. Silverware dialogue. A fork and a spoon lie together. To spoon and to fork. E equals MC squared, says the spoon. Oh, I don't have the energy, says the fork. Forgiveness, says the spoon. It's as if we lie on a vast table, says the fork. Useless. The spoon measures a dose. Sink to your knees, the fork submits. And then, brackets, the past is prescient. The spoon clasps the fork. Of course, says the spoon, it's all about portion control. Let's sleep, says the fork. Weep, the spoon says. The spoon is sorry too, like the song. Make me toast, says the fork, and snappy. The spoon says, who turned on the lights? Birds began singing their favorite, O moon, O moon. The table was laid, said the spoon, not me. Tines, my dear, are everything, says the fork. My tines are retired. They spoon through course after intercourse, the hunger being incurable, inconsolable. This one is called King Lear, L-E-E-R, not L-E-A-R. And we're nodding to Shakespeare as I do through the whole book, kind of making fun of him. So I italicize from the play, and it's the result of 8 years of lawsuits with my father. By day and night, she wrongs me. That's a quote. The fool laughs as if dad's joking. Of course, the king's esteem is inflated. Pump the dog's stomach for Viagra. Here, let me alone, but don't leave me. Your mother is dead, you will do. From the fool's, aka the daughter's point of view, he's plain angry. I'll sue you unto the grave. Perhaps his trouble is vascular. His heart stented like a kite, his heart gone. The judge in him knows the cost of lawyers. Quote, let's kill them all, he says, and hires 3. Age as narcissistic injury. Freud rages too. He's just a child. We pay the retainers. But what of his 100 nights galloping off? Dad grabs the phone. We preferred to think he was mad from the start. We didn't bring it on, this storm in his head. Quote, I nothing am, says mother, floating on her deathbed. How sharper than a serpent's tooth. Still the shrink says, let him be. Let his lawyers devise more wills and break what laws he wishes. Quote, I'll outlive prison, hold governments. For he has a decreased need for sleep and is distracted by the price of corn and corporate law and greed. Yet he writes checks for thousands to the caregiver, our proxy. She'll put out or I'll sue, he says, quote, let copulation thrive. We cook and cook and cook that he might be reached through ribs. He gorges and forgets he eats. Quote, cure old age, he demands. Forthwith, this college sends an emissary across the state. Ah, the estate, as they call it, is all up here. He points to his head. He kisses the shrink. Quote, which of you shall we say doth love us more? Doth love us more. He flicks the lights on, bedroom by bedroom. We bolt upright, glimpsing the knife. Two more, John. I lived in Sudan in 1976 when I was about a baby, translating the songs of the new era for my first book. And it became the South Sudan in 2011, a democracy that has been enmeshed in civil war ever since. And about 5 years ago, I was delighted to discover that a friend of mine from the South Sudan lived in Vancouver, and I had a chance to visit her. His poem is called Alphabet. Portraits of graduates line the room, even the children of the second wife, even her, as dead as your husband. He was taken and beaten, governor at last released, but falling to the ground, your son putting a phone to his head. You were in Egypt, in exile, safe. All he said was A, B, C, D. What men repeat during torture, so they reveal nothing, or to bear it without screaming, or remembering how they learned the alphabet under a tree, with the flies thick and the good smell of milk on their hands. A, B, C, D, you say over tea. Have a biscuit? I helped you cook long ago, cross-legged on cement in a soot-black kitchen open to the sky. In the yard, a circle of chairs, your husband pouring the scotch of some aid worker wanting some permission. When kerosene half lit their faces, the speeches began. Rhett tried to hush them, but they went on and on into the absolute black of the Sudanese night. Democracy off stage, just a little beyond. And this is the last poem of the book. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I really enjoyed writing it. And I was very, I find the term atrium hilarious. Those faux Roman constructions that hotels use. And once my father got locked out of the hotel room in his shorts. And so, it was a Babylonian kind of thing. And the ladies down below were having breakfast or something, could see him wandering around. Anyway, it's like the situation of the damned, right? The house of atrium. Heart, check. Receives blood, forces it forward. Dance to it. Cue the glitter ball. Skylit also. Many storied, like a whole book. Atria's cousins in short shorts, in candy color. See the above great whip out of the shadows? The mother taken by the brother, some soccer-headed Greeks harming the hood. Doors banging, gang banging, house or whore, the one who ends up rich, at least binge, and the bear appears, of course, there. Part 2. The hotels had it, a 70s architecture where fathers in Y fronts dance, locked out. Couture bound, these people, soft, lacy, the no parking after 8 kind, complement the atrium with capitals and dollar signs. Watch the little atrias spendin' thrifts. The heat of the day pours through with requisite light. A Rome, a Colosseum humming with volunteers from other royal houses, a lion or no lion, black-tipped or tailed. Part 3. The breeze Greeks the house, Greeks like a verb. Vesuvius tells all. But there's the whole afternoon, a dog who guards what's mortgaged, sublet up the kazoo, brackets, who has a key? The subdivision condemns what it can. 2 men force their way in, amulet heavy. Nobody prefers to be sacrificed, a prince disguised as a shepherd, the dog about to give the plot away. But wait, as Atria calls, no one is sick yet. Brackets, exeunt, pursued by bear.
Thank you very much, Terese. One more time, please give a round of applause for Terese here. And then I'll introduce our second, last, or certainly not least, feature reader of the night, John Barton, although many of you will probably know him. But John Barton is a poet, essayist, editor, and writing mentor. His collections of poetry include Hymn, For the Boy with the Eyes of the Virgin, Polari, Lost Family, Stopwatch, and the most recent one that he brought today, Compulsory Figures. The poems in this 13th collection of his plunge into the depths of history, grief, and the unshakable power of everyone and everything that shapes a life. Let's hear it from the man himself, John Barton.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to Kieran for inviting me. Thank you to Terese for reading with me. And also thank you to Anhinga Press for publishing this book. And I also just want to point out the cover is by Takeo Tanabe, the Japanese-Canadian painter who lives in Vancouver. It's an Alberta landscape, which is where I grew up, and a lot of the poems are set there. And he just turned 99. So I'm going to read the title poem, which is, it was probably the beginning of the book. My sister Pam died just over 10 years ago, and suddenly she had an aneurysm, at age 63, which seemed too young. And when I was growing up, she's 6 years older than me. She figure skated. So you can see where the title comes from, compulsory figure. So I built it around the figure 8. And so there are 8 stanzas. Each stanza has 8 lines, and each line has 8 syllables. Compulsory figure. Our past is a community rink visibly inscribed. The blades of the white skates you're laced into, transferring circle 8s onto the ice decades before I thought to remember I am watching you turn in a short, flaring skirt when, at 13, you work hard to slip from blade edge to tendered blade edge. Your 8 circles cut into the flooded and frozen expanse of light. Each one burnished, a shadow outlined in silver, skates canting in sync from axis to axis as you turn, friction firing from each twist what looks like frost bangles fused at a single jeweled point. Your weight angling from hip to hip as you wheel, lifting after a thrust, your right foot as, without wobble, you glide, having first set down your left, 8 assured overlapping circles I hadn't grasped or graved into the thin plate of what I recall. It sinks duller than the opaque, shining surface you score, the nicks from which I start to pull instant impressions of you turning and turning as you blur with focused longing through iterations of each evolving aspiration into the incisive woman I know you have turned into, sitting next to me at the rink, ghosting the traces of girls like you who claim the ice, who after perfecting their compulsory figures outshine the bright, short-lived moon of their spotlights to escape mindless spinning without warning, a stroke striking you. Your skating circles of thought stopped, chilling me, my skating cut loosed from your brain's sliding impress sped to brightness. In practice, more sure than my own heart and mind caught on the edges of your agile-footed dreaming, the blunted anguish exact jumps I improvise in arenas over dramatically lit, ornament looping past figures pulled into muscle memory, spins I can't break from, teetering symbols put on ice to ignore balance, all my circle 8s rash, a spiral downward, this program you would curb, though I am falling with such brave certainty. White roses hail down on the ice, my technique expressive, if not faultlessly expressed. You no longer in the stands, tough-minded and clear-eyed, my attentive audience. So the next poem, so some of what this book is exploring is my settler heritage, and my family has, my mother's family in particular, seemed to pop up in surprising places in the historic record. One was my great-grandfather was at the Battle of Patoche, and he kept a diary. And this poem is about one of, I think he might be my great-grandfather. And he went to England with his wife and son, young son, for what you would call the season from Quebec. And he commissioned portraits of himself and his wife and his son just before they went to a fancy dress ball, and the portraits are done by John Tenniel, who of course was the illustrator of Alice in Wonderland, and he did them when he was young, long before Alice in Wonderland. And I have the portrait that I'm describing, and if you want to see it afterwards, I would be happy to show it to you. And it begins with an epigraph from Lewis Carroll. Everything's got a moral, if only you can find it. Masquerade. 20 years before John Tenniel could limn his name, plummeting sketch over sketch with Alice down her rabbit hole. Big Ben's hands not yet sweeping across the full moon of the Hatter's watch to track not hours or minutes, but days and years. My forebear, 5 generations back, having sailed from Lower Canada to London for the season, posed for him in ermine and hose, a single ostrich feather dandled to his shoulder from a floppy cobalt beretta, face roughed in honeycombs of starch lace to hold the jowls stiff as they rose out of a robin's egg blue jerkin, latticed in gilt filigree, the skirt flaring from a cinched waist above knees thrown wide, feet slipped into duck-bill boots, while he leaned legless upon rails of a swiftly cross-hatched king's chair. The sleeves of his inky box coat puffed, the 4th glass of claret he kept raising, still undrained, semi-precious stones adorning his attire, all paste, although the candle-lit lusters got him to look larger and by divine right apparently more well-suited to reign. A 3rd queen and sickly heir sketched also. The drawings he would hand down from branch to attenuated branch of a family tree so fruitful with rumor its crown spreads low to the ground. Windfalls inherited by son after son rolling away, if not their assured taste for authority, the bespoke trinity of disguises my ancestor had made to measure for his boy, wife, and himself lost to fire. A century later, the coach house behind my widowed great-grandmother's home during the Second World War, peaceably burning to the ground scant blocks from Lake Ontario's parched, flinty surface, my mother leaving the costume ball good King Hal to me, so he may hang in the scruffy foyer of my 1-bedroom apartment, where sun can't make each wash of color any lighter, plasterwork frame crumbling curlicue upon curlicue, cutting of clingy gold leaf fitfully dropping free, only eyes as blue-gray as my own gazing back icily while anchoring airless nostrils, the lips unambiguously thin beneath a spruce red beard, caught talking by the slurred traces of graphite in the faint preparatory drawing, young Tenniel mastering sleight of hand for Alice's unyielding half-dream world of bigger and smaller proportions, the short sword he sketched to balance on the pivot of Henry's knee, never, as far as I know, drawn from the tortoiseshell scabbard, its imagined power laid to rest on my desk as a sham vestige of what's real. As probably a lot of you know, I have written a lot of sonnets, and this is mostly not sonnets, but there are a few other forms in here. And so I thought I would read that form, a poem that P.K. Page popularized, that many people write, the glossa. And I use as my 4 lines lines from a poem called Letter to a Roman Friend by Joseph Brodsky. And in his poem, Brodsky is writing from some remote part of the empire to say he's glad he's not in the capital. Letter to an American Friend. So this is the lines from Brodsky. One who lives remote from snowstorms and from Caesar has no need to hurry, flatter, play the coward. You may say that local governors are vultures. I, for one, prefer a vulture to a vampire. Letter to an American Friend. Have the empty years we have called peace come to an end? Also the stray parts walkers whistle at dusk before picking up after history, their dogs off leash and sniffing my fingers to confirm I'm a friend. As stopped along cliffs whose scarps stay fenced off as camas sink roots into what topsoil hangs on against sea winds blowing in. I observe the Olympics surrender their bloodshot, almost naked summits to erasure. Clouds falling ruthless as shrouds, while in Pittsburgh you dig out from a blizzard so reaped from ice it could not be rawer, to one who lives remote from snowstorms and from Caesar. Or so till last November I had gulled myself, gulls overhead tooling in the thermals, opportunist squadrons of fighter jets, container ships leaving Vancouver, floating untariffed goods, bound not for the Golden Gate, but the Straits of Malacca, past this token headland where predating Confederation, a now absent battery of guns once waited to repel the Tsar, their anxious deterrence idly brought to mind by a leeward facing granite marker, countless times read, never supposing their ghosts could tomorrow fire on a threat till now unmeasured, weighed by a foe who has no need to hurry, flatter, play the coward. Good government, order, peace versus life, liberty, and pursuit of what some still begrudge is happiness, are grubby tablets setting us each up and apart, both victim to grievances, protesters, pulling down James Cook from his pedestal and drowning him in my city's shallow inner harbor where he bobbed about hollow, just his bronze fiberglass feet and ankles intact, where he'd stood lightheaded in ways no one had guessed near the legislature to witness laws broken, there obtain royal assent. The legacy of our minders mortared into inks drying beyond the tortuous clauses of each bill. You may say that local governors are vultures. Before the cherry trees along the Potomac summon the will to blossom, anyone hoping to walk beneath as they let loose on their lunch hour petals loosened as puka shells landing on clean hair and relaxed shoulders is arbitrarily uprooted and barred from their offices, the whole of their obligations expunged from the cloud, a digital crystal-knocked, chilled masses, many lately cared for, disappeared behind barbed wire, flown undocumented, tired and poor on storm-tossed aircraft far from your teeming, noisome shore, a sanctifier of little true anymore. I, for one, prefer a vulture to a vampire. So I'm just going to read 2 or 3 more poems, and I just, apropos of nothing, I read a book by about My Own Private Idaho, the great film by Gus Van Sant. And the author was talking about how this film was kind of a touchstone for her that made her realize that, yes, she was grunge. Yes, she was alternative. Yes, she was cool. And my film was Cabaret by, which is based, the great film with Liza Minnelli, set, in the Weimar Republic in Berlin, just before the rise of Hitler. And it was based on novels written by Christopher Isherwood, the great queer novelist. And I saw that film when I was about 15 or 16. And it was like, I always call it the Helen Keller moment. Queer has been spelled into my palm. And I kind of knew who I was. And so this is my tribute to Isherwood. Compulsory figures, it's all the influences. And so this is one. Rereading my Isherwoods. Reading inside the egg of my adolescent bedroom, bird shell interior painted lemon, bloodshot windows draped orange, I occupy Berlin. Encounter for the first time a phalanx of brown shirts I'd not yet bumped into at school. Their eyes angry after years of want, lost boys thrilling for plunder, for confiscating the papers of late night regulars, uniforms more shapely in serge than I could have hoped for. Serge, a boy I talked to, in front of their eyes in the incensed haze before they can punch out mine. Their brutalizing winks I have no smoky sense of, on the scent of what it is I am most ready to burn. Self-knowledge and ember hanging from the shaky ebony holder, mood and puffed by the rouged lips of the nightclub's host. Weimar's doppelganger glamour, as frank as fresh oysters, not unlike the men I shall one day leave my bedroom to shuck, stripping them of their neoliberal fluvogs and Calvin Klein strut, from LSD to ecstasy to sobriety to pot, love beads giving way to genital piercings, tattoos, and yoga, my continents drifting together and apart as they swagger in and out my door, men whose denimed asses I pat, then blow away with a kiss, but only until outlook by outlook I start to rebrowse my Isherwoods, my face jowly in a chorus line of mirrors as I shave back to my youth, relather the author, bristling open secrets, the shifting persona of each of his fictions, an altering stand-in for himself, prim zealot, carnal socialist, zoom-less amniosis, annotating dissident, a progressively less self-centered memoirist. From my understudy's privilege, I try on anew the lives he chose or cast aside in city after city, his books weighing the shelves I unpack into from one apartment to the next, volumes as they open, making space for Isherwood as narrator or narrator as Isherwood, his ghostly cipher more of a guru to me than any father I could find, for his unself-conscious omniscience, offering me mantras of awareness, my teenage self in love with Michael York, the protagonist of Cabaret, as my first glimpse of Christopher, the sham looks of his foils fake shine for Sally Bowles, a paste solitaire Isherwood never wore, his unadorned prose and approval I look for, now as then, turning with less and less fanfare on my worn down heel to walk onwards and away. So I'm going to read two more poems, one very short, which I will say is Animal. And the title is Bushed. After You lean heavy against me. We are horses seeking warmth in dusk woods, standing asleep. After you lean heavy against me, breeze on exposed skin, as rough leaves, loud as white water tangle overhead. After you lean heavy against me, we are horses seeking warmth. And now for vegetable. Peas and carrots. I shall, while he scrubs, peels, and dices, love a shell we peel, curl inside. Loneliness, a shell hulling us from inside. What's boiled, found to taste better with butter. The boiling point reached, makeup sex goes buttery. I wash the plates before he starts to clean up. Should we shower apart? We don't feel clean. In pots on the boil, bugs rise to the top. Orange not boiling dry with green on the stovetop. Mixed singularities served with every meal. Love and loneliness spooning, our usual meal. So usual a side dish with heat going soft, fridge cold, not restoring crunch to softness. I shell while he scrubs, peels, and dices. Thank you for listening.